Please be seated. The reading is written in the 11th chapter of Numbers. And Moses said to the Lord, "Why are you treating me, your servant, so harshly? Have mercy on me. What did I do to deserve the burden of all these people? Did I give birth to them? Did I bring them into the world? Why did you tell me to carry them in my arms like a mother carries a nursing baby? How can I carry them to the land you swore to give to their ancestors? Where am I supposed to get the meat for all these people? They keep whining at me, saying, 'Give us meat to eat.' I can't carry all these people by myself. The load is far too heavy. If this is how you intend to treat me, just go ahead and kill me. Do me a favor and spare me the misery." Word of God, word of life.
Thanks be to God.
Word of God, word of life. The Lord be with you. All right, y'all. Buckle up, because today's topic is a topic that will strike fear into the hearts of many, especially any of you who have ever worked with, currently work with, or currently live with children. Because today we are talking about meltdowns. Everybody gasp in terror. Right? Macaulay Culkin, Home Alone, face is what this topic deserves. Because today we're talking, yes, about meltdowns. And if you've spent any time caring for, around small children, you know the terror of a meltdown. You know the fear and the anxiety that knowing that a meltdown can strike at any moment, for any reason, can strike into your heart. Out of curiosity, I posted in a Facebook group I'm part of Lutheran Leader Moms. It's made up of mostly pastors, deacons, people who work for churches, women who work for churches. And I asked them to share the reasons that their children had had a meltdown this week. I didn't even ask for in the past. I'd asked for this week. Here we go. I wouldn't let my kid hide in the freezer. And not just like a chest freezer, like the freezer attached to a refrigerator freezer. It was bedtime, and I wouldn't take my 2-year-old to Costco. I told my 2-year-old to do whatever he wanted to do, and he screamed at me, "I don't want to do whatever I want to do." She wanted bubbles in the bath, so I put bubbles in the bath. Then there were bubbles in the bath. Right? My guess is any of you who have ever spent 5 minutes around a child can add a story to this collection, right? You all probably have things that this calls up for you. And it seems like, at least in my experience of 4 years of parenting, that the most common place for these meltdowns is in the transitions, isn't it? The time between when we're doing something and we have to stop doing that thing and do another thing. Or that time, as we're calling it this Lenten season, the land between. The time, as Pastor Brad reminded us last week, when we are no longer doing what we once were doing, we're not doing what we were doing, and we're not doing the new thing yet. The land between. The land between the familiar, known thing and between the new, unfamiliar thing. Or the thing we're waiting for and excited about. If you'd like some examples of this, I can give you some from my child's week this week. It's the time between waking up and getting breakfast. He is a hangry child. Or the time between leaving the toys at our house and getting to the park. Or the one that strikes every Sunday morning. The time between arriving at church and when his favorite people arrive, aka Pastor Brad, Michelle, or Miss Noodle. Longest in between time of that child's life, waiting for Pastor Brad to show up. And as they wander the wilderness, The Israelites know what this in-between time is. They know what a transition is because they're no longer in the familiar of Egypt, but they're not yet to the promised land. They're wandering, and they don't know when they're going to get to the new thing. And as they wander, they are unsure of what's coming. They don't know where they're going. They're in a literal wilderness. And to top it all off, they are hangry. Think Betty White in the Snickers commercial, "You're not you when you're hungry." Yeah. And all in the midst of their hunger, all they have to eat is this stuff that they don't know what to call, so they just call it manna, which means, what is it? Right? They don't really know what to do. And so like any tired, hangry, scared, uncertain human, they melt down. They complain, they gripe, they reminisce about all they ate in Egypt, crying, "Oh, for some meat! We remember the fish and the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. Now all we ever eat is this manna. More manna." Nerd moment. This is all I can think of whenever I hear that. More lambus bread. If you've seen Lord of the Rings, you're welcome. If not, it's worth, 12 hours of your time to watch all of them. The extended versions, preferably. Right? Seemingly forgetting that when they had those leeks, onions, garlic, fish, they were in slavery. And they were expected to do a lot of hard labor, often with not enough resources to actually do what they were being expected to do. Right? They forget that they were just worked and worked and worked. They forget that when they were in slavery, they cried out to God to free them. And they grumble, and they grumble, and they grumble. They grumble to each other, they grumble amongst themselves, and they grumble to Moses. And so poor Moses has finally had enough, and he has his own meltdown. Right? What did I do to deserve this? I didn't give birth to these people. Why have you made me responsible for them? I can't feed them. God, it's too much. Put me out of my misery now. Spare me. Might be one of my favorite lines in the Bible and of Moses, right? And honestly, I'm going to be really honest. I think if any of us were in this place that Moses is in, we would have the same meltdown. Moses is trying to hold a lot. He's hearing the complaints of all of these people that he has led out of Egypt. He is the face of this expedition, the face of the promise of God. He's trying to figure out where he's going. He's in the middle of his own time of uncertainty, and he is doing something that he insisted to God he was not qualified to do, and yet God convinced him to do it. And so to turn to God and say, it's too much, seems fair. So Moses does the only thing he can think of, the only thing that seems reasonable. He turns towards God and melts down. He turns towards God and melts down. Rather than sugarcoating it or trying to hide the frustration he has with God, rather than pretending it's all okay and I got this, I'm fine, he melts down. He tells God exactly how he feels, exactly what's going on, exactly how this all feels. I want to step back to toddlers and children for a moment. For those of you who are parents, how many of you have ever had the moment where some other adult or person in your life has come to you and told you how amazing your child is? How well-behaved, how emotionally well-regulated, how all of those things they are, and you think to yourself, my child? The one who melts down when I put the cereal in the bowl in the wrong order? So this phenomenon has a name. It's called restraint collapse. It's what happens when our kids spend all day in public behaving, when they spend all day acting like they're supposed to act for the people that they know they have to behave for. And then when they come home where they feel safe, they can no longer hold it together. So they collapse. They melt down. And it can be big ways that seem unproportionate to anything, right? And they need to know in those moments that they are loved, that they are held, that somebody else can hold this with them. That what feels too big for their brains and their bodies is not too big for the big people in their lives. And I kind of imagine that that's where Moses is at in this story. That restraint collapse isn't just for toddlers and children, but it's Moses as well. Because Moses has been holding it together. Day after day after day, he is in front of God's people trying to put on a good face. He's in front of God's people trying to be positive and encouraging. He's trying to lead a people he does not feel qualified to lead. He's trying to behave the way he's supposed to for them. And it becomes too much to carry. And so he does what he needs to do. He turns towards the God who made and created him, the God who knows his inner being, and he has a meltdown. He says to God, "This is too much for me to carry." He turns towards the one who he knows will catch him and collapses because it's all he can do. Restraint, collapse, and meltdowns aren't just for our toddlers and our kiddos. If we're honest, we as adults sometimes need to do it as well. We may have gained some experience and some knowledge and some skills along the way for holding it together a little longer, but it is still human to need to melt down. It's still human to come to a moment in our lives when we can no longer carry it and we need to collapse. And in those moments, we can be honest with God. We can collapse in front of God, and God promises to catch us. Because when it all feels like too much, when we turn to God and say, "What have I done to deserve to carry this load?" When we turn to God and say, "It's all too much for me to carry, I cannot carry this on my own," God catches us. God catches what feels too big and reminds us that God is big enough to hold it. And God says to us, "You were never meant to carry it alone. In fact, you were never meant to carry it at all. It's mine to carry. Let me hold it for you." God says to us, "These aren't your people. They're mine. Let me care for them. Let me love them. Let me love you." And when we collapse, we get to let go. We get to release what it is we were never meant to carry in the first place. And so next week, we get to see what happens when we release, that when we release what we were never meant to carry, we make space for God to provide rather than thinking we have to do it for ourselves. We release what we think is ours and give it back to God, our Creator and our Maker. And God says, "I've got you. I've got this. It may feel too big for you, but it is never, never too big for me." And all of God's people say, I invite you to join us in singing our hymn of praise and song of the day, and to stand to do that.